Hello and welcome to overanalyzing every single chapter of Houseki no Kuni. Spoilers for up to 105, and let me know in the comments if you have any analysis that I missed or if you disagree with me with anything I say, because that's completely fine. We can have a discussion. What was I doing? Oh yeah, cover. So here's the cover for 4. This is the first time going over 4, and I have the full cover in the art book. Now, it's upside down. It would be helpful if it wasn't upside down. Now, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I said this in my previous videos because I might have not known at the time, but it's just the English covers that don't have the extra content, that don't have the extra side parts of the page. So see here we have Cinnabar on this side, and then see here we have the where's this one? Oh, this one. Oh, here. Oh, interesting. It's like here. There we go. And then this one, oh, it would be helpful if I was showing it. But see, like the English ones don't have the little side flaps that go on the side that are in the Japanese ones. And so that's why the full covers, that's why the Cinnabar isn't on the English covers, unfortunately. And another thing to note about this Volume 4 cover, which is not related to the story at all, but it's a lot like Ichikawa's, this is Mushi to Uta, which is Ichikawa's, I think, first or second. I know it's in a group with the 20, with the vacation one. Um, but the cover composition is similar, just with all the characters like laying in a field in like a circle. And it has a little cool glossy texture on it, unlike the English versions of things. But anyway, so let's look at the cover. So this is the cover. As you can see, we have Cinnabar in the back. We have the Lunarian dogs, which are lovely. One thing I don't have much to say about this cover actually, but we have Obsidian, Red Barrel, Alexandrite, Rutile. One thing to note is that you can see here that there's holes in the bottom of Hasa's shoes. That's kind of like the only thing that I noticed that's like relevant to point out. Let me know if you notice anything like over analyzing E. But you see here that we have like the gold leaking out of Foss's like foot here, and we can see that the dogs are playing with Foss's shoes, and that there's actually a hole where Foss puts the gold for the heel. So that's kind of interesting. That's kind of the only thing I observed. Other than that, it's a very nice cover. It's very happy compared to like I don't know the next ones, but yeah. Back to the story. Um, let's see. So is this? Let me make sure it's the right way up. Yeah. So here we go. This is of course Shido's hand probably, and here we have the character introduction page. Now, with this character introduction page, I just want to note that like there's 2 characters that go with Foss and the Moon on either side of them. So of course there's the Amethyst and Alexandrite, and there's both of the diamonds, and we of course have the ones on each side. And we can see here that Cinnabar and Bort are facing the opposite way of each other. And as I think I mentioned in the last one, as the character introductions like go on, Cinnabar and Bort. Oh well, Bort doesn't in this one. Okay, well, um, the I believe that they start to face each other a little more, and they're also on the same side. Whereas in the previous character introduction and the next one, I believe, uh, let's see, I have the next one. I think they're still facing opposite ways. Yeah, see, like in this one, we'll get to this one eventually, but like see, Cinnabar and Bort are facing opposite ways, and it's not until like Cinnabar is reconnected with the group that they start facing the same way, and so it's just like a interesting detail about that. What else can we glean from this? Of course, Yukos and Jade are there. Jade looks more serious than Yukos. Again, Yukos is always just put as super competent compared to Foss. Like with Yukos's little comment of secretary can forecast the weather with 83% like accuracy. Um, Yellow Diamond again is it's pointed out that they don't know all the details, are not overly concerned with details. These are the secrets to longevity. Um, it kind of praises this as a good thing, like the secrets to longevity, like how Yellow Diamond has been able to stay alive for so long. But it actually shows that like it actually hints at the fact that Yellow like tries to forget things in order to, be okay with the stuff that's happened to them, or like losing the amount of partners they have. Um, let's see, who else did I have a comment on? Sensei is still suspicious as ever. Like that's what his comment is. Alex hints at uh them doing something more. Foss's is kind of funny just because it's like um has now lost both hands and feels as if the soul will be the next to go. That's all. Um, because it's very true, and Foss has way more to go than just this transformation. A thing to note about Obsidian is, they're the ones who's in charge of weapons. Their personality, like, also doesn't really make you think like, oh, weapons technician. But all of the swords are actually made of inclusionless material that Obsidian makes. Uh, Out of themselves, and that's why they're in charge of weapons, which is very interesting. It's kind of interesting to know the unique capabilities of each gem. Um, like of course, like we've, but it's interesting how Obsidian's difference is basically what gets them their job in the first place. But that I guess that could be said about anyone. Anyway, so we started with the hand and then the foot of Shiro, and that's what it shows in the contents. I don't know what if that could allude to anything, but it's interesting to note. So here we have Foss and Rutile, of course, ready for spring. And we left off where Foss says, "Who's Cinnabar?" Of course, that lovely line. And I just love the facial expressions here because you can really see like the change in like Foss's facial expression of suddenly remembering, and Rutile being shocked at that. And then, Foss is like, "I didn't say that." I love the like framing here of just the really harsh like lighting, just with putting Rutile in the dark and Foss in the light. Um, my condition is getting pretty serious. It would seem so, and then all of the gems are preparing for winter and such. Uh, okay, yeah. So on the 22nd day, Antark was taken. So that's really interesting because this is again a sign of Ichikawa using not round numbers to indicate time, just to make it, I think, to make it more believable. Because if it was like the 20th day, that would be like something, or the 25th day, but it's the 22nd day. I'm not sure if the number 22 is anything special to do. It is interesting to note that it was 220 years for the time skip where Foss was crushed into pieces. So there is that like 22 again, but I don't know if that like relates to Buddhism or anything like that. I do not know enough about Buddhism to speak on it. So I feel free to give all of your Buddhist analysis in the comments because I probably won't point most of that stuff out just because I don't know much about it. But another thing to note is that Antark being taken is a huge, huge, huge like plot point for the story, and it like Foss has such an emotional connection to Antark. And it's just interesting that like they were only together for like 22 days, and it just shows how much Foss valued that companionship, even if it was only for 22 days. And it also just shows like how we don't know how long like Yellow was with their partners, so just like how hurt Foss was with only using a partner they had known for 22 days. Like I can't imagine the hurt for like all the other characters, considering how much it affected Foss. Um, but it's interesting to note that Foss is like 300 years old. They these gems like live for almost forever, and Foss 300 years old, 22 days. Like that's such a small portion of their life. But I think it was such an impact on Foss because it was really like their first like partnership or having like a first like friendship where they actually did things together, and you can see how much that like gravely affects Foss in that way. Um, it was a valiant struggle, but I did not arrive in time to help. I'm sorry. And you see how Congo places the blame on him. He doesn't place the blame on Foss. So well, I don't know if you would place the blame on Foss, but you can see that Congo takes responsibility for every gem being lost. He never blames the other gems. He never says like, "Oh, it's your fault for not doing this or that." He always takes it on itself because he knows that he's the entire reason why they're getting taken in the first place. Um, and we can see that all the gems are sad about it. But like, I really wonder like what Antark's relationship was with the other gems. I know that it was said that Antark is kind of like an only child, but it's like interesting because I wonder like to what deep relationship they have and all that. But it seems like the gems really moved on quickly for Antark being lost, like as a lot of their friends have. But of course, Foss doesn't. Antark's duties. I'm so sorry I'm late. So Foss is late, and like I think this is showing more of their like memory loss is what I think for the reason why Foss is late. It's also like a dramatic entrance because Foss has changed a bunch, but like Foss being late is, how do I put this? Like maybe they forgot about the meeting and then suddenly remembered with like Cinnabar, or maybe they forgot the location because this is seen later. Something I didn't realize until I was watching, until my friend was rereading it. But like Foss, it shows Foss like losing their direction around the school sometimes, like after like a lot of their body parts go missing, and so like this could just be that too, where they just are forgetting where things are and having to figure it out again. Of course, it's a little less likely. I don't know. Why do you think Foss is late? Let me know in the comments. Uh, Foss, Jade's like talking about it. So Antark's duties were given to Foss. Yeah, and so we see here that I'm talking about framing before, but we see here that again Foss is equal. I'd say we're Rutile. Again, after Foss got the legs, they were more equal until something bad happened. Now Foss has the new arms and is now an equal level to Rutile in the frame. Same here, equal level. And then we see here that Foss is even above the gems in framing here, and in here again they're above the gems. And then it's not until the gems are here that like Foss is on equal ground again, and then Foss is again elevated when they're describing what they did in winter. I think it's to show like how far Foss has come, like in the story, to be able to actually give some authority and actually talk to the gems in this way. Because this is the first time they've probably like had to give a report or anything like that, just because they've given reports before, but to all the gems because of how important it is. Um, yeah. So then we have Foss talking. Does Foss seem different to you? Yeah. So, like, it's interesting that the characters don't immediately like be like, "Oh man, like Foss is so different." It's kind of interesting how it takes them a while because to me the differences are kind of glaringly obvious. But I don't know. Oh, Foss doesn't even have their. No, they do have their legs covered. Right? No. Okay, maybe this was a. Yeah. So like Foss's legs are still like that. I guess they knew that, but their arms are actually behind their back here, so maybe they didn't see it. So maybe they're like, Foss got a haircut or something. Antark was taken a while trying to. Well, wait. Sorry. Antark was taken away while trying to protect me. Here's how it happened. And it's kind of interesting how Foss phrases these words. Like, this is an account of what happened, but this is Foss's account of what happened. Um, we can see that Foss puts emphasis on how the reason Antark was taken away is because they were protecting Foss. Um, and that just shows that like Foss has guilt there. Like it's because of me that Antark was taken. And it's separated a bit by this text, but Antark was taken away because of me is basically what that says, and it shows like their guilt in it. Whereas like you can also see this with Congo too, just with him saying like that I did not arrive in time to help. So you see that like with both Congo and Foss, they put the blame on themselves, and that's another similarity between Congo and Foss because like the other gems do that too, but I think to a lesser extent. Like I think when the amethysts almost got taken, like they didn't put the blame on Foss, but they were like, oh, like they were trying to show off or something, or they kind of like brushed it off. Whereas like you can tell that like there's actually like lingering guilt here between these two characters. Here's how it happened, and when Foss starts to use their arms, that's when the background goes black, which is really interesting because all the other times, like this is seen pretty light. And now that Foss is using their arms, kind of indicating a difference or like a change. Like again here, like the background's black. Uh, but when Foss is talking, it's like more gray. And then I like how the arms just like stretch like past everyone's faces, like really gets in the way of what they're talking about. And this is where we get the color for fluorite, which could be the fluorite that is like Red Diamond's friend later, or it could be a different one because they specify color. I don't think it's that important. I'm gonna be honest, but it's interesting like how they describe the different characters. I also wonder how they know exactly what gem it is when they see it. I don't know. Maybe they're just so keen on that because that they're the same creature, but they're like, oh yeah, that's definitely fluorite. Like, how do you know? Anyway, when Antark fought and defended the type of Lunarians created pieces soon after that. And you can see how like Euclid is more like surprised, Jade is kind of like stressed, and I like how it shows the like Rutail's the most stressed, probably thinking about like, oh, I definitely want to dissect those. Another Lunarian, it was a small type, but um, we couldn't find any in Lex's reports. Between the, I also wonder, like, it's Alex, right? Or they either call like Alexi or Alex is what Alexandrite is usually called. So I wonder if Foss using the shortened version of Alex's name is also an indicator of forgetting things. It's kind of like how when they lost their legs, they used like Euc instead of Euclid, which like is fine because it's the same name anyway. It's just shortened. But here, like Foss is Alex instead of Alex or Alexi. So it's interesting, like distinguishing between the central vessel and the common variants surrounding it. There were 8 of a type of Lunarian I had never seen before. They were bigger. They were a size bigger, and I know. So it's interesting here too that like Foss is now able to say like give details about the Lunarians, which Foss wasn't able to do before the last time that this happened. And it really shows like how they've been observing the Lunarians more, and that they have been uh like seen more Lunarians as well because they're able to like say all of these things about them. And that wasn't able to be done with the Amethyst when the Amethyst got taken because Alex was asking questions about them. And they're like, oh, who saw the whole thing? Foss. But Foss already went. And it kind of also just shows that, like, this is such a mundane thing to Foss now, is describing the Lunarians that they see every day. They were something like this. They sat in a circle around the vessel and shot arrows from there. And it sees that, like, Foss is just talking and is kind of, like, really dazed. And, then they start moving their arms like this. And again, whenever the gold is being loose, there's, like, a black background to show, like, the change and, like, the starkness. And they were something like this. And it, guys, just kind of shows, like, how Foss is in their own world, too because the backgrounds slowly get lighter as they start to turn towards the gems and actually see their facial expressions. And of course, the gems are in uh, a lighter frame to do that. Isn't this so cool? Like just the paneling of it, like how it works, like it getting lighter. Like of course this because that's not lighting. That's just a mood. This is the mood is this is in Foss's head, and as Foss slowly turns toward the audience, they're looking at their um there was something like this. They sat in a circle around the vessel and shot the air. Yeah, I read that. And so Foss looks at them and then sees what's happening, and you can see how, again, the background is slowly getting lighter as Foss starts to really get back into reality. Um, Foss, are those your arms? Yes, the ice floes took both my arms. Another thing that's interesting is that, like, they talk about how Antwerp was taken, but neither Congo or Foss brings up the fact that Foss lost their arms. I'm not sure if Congo just doesn't want them to relive that, or if it's because Foss probably just doesn't see it as important. Like, and that's saying things. Like, when pieces go missing, like, when a physical piece of yourself is ripped away and Foss is way more concerned about Antark than they are about their own physical well-being, which I've said before. Foss doesn't really care about their physical well-being, but the fact that the gems have to bring up like what happened to your arms, the fact that Foss doesn't even think to think about it, just shows they really don't think about themselves and they really don't think of it in that way. And in fact, like this turning to the audience, like Foss has been alone in winter for like days. I don't know how many days it is because they don't really specify. I don't know how many days are in winter. But like Foss has been alone in winter with just Congo, and of course Congo isn't Foss's peer. Congo's like their parent. Like Foss knows that Congo is always going to like stay with them and all that. And it's just interesting here how like it's not until Foss sees their peers again like on the same eye level as them that Foss starts to think about themselves and how they look towards others and how their modifications have affected the people around him. Yes, the Arsenals took my arms. Luckily, an alloy of platinum attached itself to me instead, and I've just been using that. And so it sees how like Foss's dismissive tone of like just the events of what transpired just shows that they really either don't want to think about it or that they really don't think that it's that big of a deal. They don't think that losing body parts and replacing them with other materials is that big of a deal, and they probably don't want to think about how that contributed to Antark's takenness. I don't think they're dangerous. And you can see how they're like unsure. And Foss is trying to convince them. Oh, like Foss is trying to convince them that they're still the same, that they're still um, a gem. Like that's like another thing too that like comes up later, which this is just like hinting towards is that like later, gem Foss tries to convince them that they're still a gem. But Bort thinks they're a Lunarian, and they're like, "What am I? Am I a gem or am I a Lunarian?" And then it really sets up that they're human. And another thing too is like this separationness from Foss and the others, just in how their physical makeup is different, also contributes to the overarching theme of their loneliness, of no one truly getting who they are. And of course, that is just exasperated when they're the only ones who becomes human. Of course. Um, oh, are they that weird? Like you can see, like this is like the first time Foss has like ever thought about their appearance in reference to their peers, and like this is so sad, and we rarely get to see Foss's thoughts. We do sometimes, but like most of the time, we don't get to see what Foss hears or what Foss thinks. And so Foss is like realizing now. They're like, oh, I like they're starting to realize how their modifications to their body like are affecting everyone's perception of them, and that's kind of like messing them up. And that's exactly why they powder up their legs, which they didn't do before. They didn't care to do that before because they didn't think it was that big of a deal. It never bothered me before. Like right, what Foss is saying right now is that Foss is now changing to reflect like a more normal to their peers because Foss wants to fit in. Like that's one of the things that Foss wants to do is fit in. And before their legs, like it was fine because the legs didn't stand out that much and stuff like that. But now that they're able to, they want to hide their legs because they don't want to be seen as different from the others. And that's like a huge thing with the society too, is the sameness, wanting to stick to the same sameness. Oh, I just remembered something I wanted to point out here. But you see here that all the gems are in their summer uniforms and Foss is still in the winter. Of course, it's explained later that Red Barrel is still working on their summer outfit because of the changes on Foss, but Foss never puts on the summer outfit. The Foss is always in the winter one, and that's why when we see like, is this summer or is it spring? It's spring. It's not summer, but the only time we see Foss in a spring outfit is when it goes back to their birth, like when they're starting lessons for the first time and they're in a spring outfit in like their younger self. But we never see this Foss wear a spring outfit, and it's because I think that they want to keep like the memory of Antark alive, like a sort of thing. Like they want to stay in exactly the same place that they were when Antark died. And I think that's why they don't push to change their uniform or anything like that, because maybe they don't feel like it's needed. They don't feel like that. And it just elevates the separation between the other gems and Foss. And like this is Foss's attempt to get back to have a less separation between them. And it says here that Cinnabar, like again, this is also mirroring Cinnabar, with Cinnabar also being separate from the group and not changing their uniform to spring, because again, parallel with Cinnabar, the fact that they both keep their winter uniform. And Cinnabar's thing here says, as solitary and isolated as ever, opts to not wear the summer uniform to avoid getting it dirty. So we see that, like, that's Cinnabar's reason. And again, like, is it spring? Did I say summer again? No, it is summer. Okay, it says summer uniform, so maybe I got it right. But it's interesting there too, because it also like gives Cinnabar's like inference that they're not worthy of wearing a summer uniform, kind of like they're not worthy to be a part of the gems and like wear the same clothes, and they'd rather wear the winter one that they're more comfortable in and that they just prefer. And I bet Foss is the same, but for different reasons. And now we go to the next page, and but now I'm embarrassed to be so flashy all over. Don't worry about my arms, the powder will come off with when they stretch anyway. Whatever you say. So like again here is the like Rutile is powdering up their legs, and we can see that Foss is like trying to make an attempt to be normal, but they know that it's futile to hide their arms. So, but they're doing everything they can, and the fact that Foss has thought about putting powder on their arms and telling Rutile that it's useless is just saying that like they would like to. I'm sure if Foss was able to put powder on their arms, that they would, just so that they can feel more included in their community. For the time being, all they can do is their legs, and that's why they powder their legs at least. How is Cinnabar? Same as usual. If it bothers you, why don't you go see for yourself? I like how Rutile is kind of like, Go see your friend, Foss. Like I wonder like what characters know like the amount of relationships that people have, but the fact that Retail has been trying to get Foss to go see Cinnabar, like it kind of just I think it is Retail kind of being like go make friends, but oh no, I wouldn't have anything to say. And another thing is like this is another thing with the worthiness sort of thing. And before winter started, actually, we saw Foss see Cinnabar and say that they have nothing to talk to them about. And it's kind of the same with Antark too. Like Foss, we see at the end of winter that Foss still goes to Antark and talks to them, but Foss was like telling Sensei like, "Oh, I'll have nothing to report to Antark, or I'll have nothing to say." It kind of shows that like Foss doesn't feel like they can go talk to their friends unless they bring value to them. And so Foss is literally saying like, "I bring no value," like talking to Cinnabar or something like that. And then we get interrupted by all the gems being fascinated with Foss's arms, and it's kind of interesting how Foss like originally was like, oh, they're weird, like they don't like me, they're scared of me because I'm different. And that's another thing too. Um, a lot of things when people are different from others, like people fear them. Like that's like a common thing of like why bad things like racism and sexism exist because when you don't understand someone, you fear them or something along those lines. And so the reason why Foss also probably tries to like cover their legs up and stuff like that is just because they don't want to be someone feared. They want to be a part of the group. They want to. Fear is like the opposite of what they want. But now like the gems are like praising them for how different they are and how like cool and strength like strong they've become. And another thing too is it just shows that the gems only value Foss's competency and how Foss is now more competent rather than the fact that like Foss has lost their limbs, which is a very traumatizing experience. But um, come on, do that thing again where they went all goopy, huh? But it wears me out. Another thing too is to note is that like this is all based on like Foss's like self-image of themselves is what the gold reflects. It reflects Foss's mind and it reflects like how Foss is feeling. Like that's why when Foss is distressed, the gold just goes places because it reflects Foss's mental state. And it's interesting how like Foss's arms like look like hands originally, but they don't like stay that way or what do I mean like when they go to actually grab things they don't grab things like hands, they just extend and do as Foss like needs them to do. They don't think about how to keep them in hand form, and it kind of also just shows that like even though Foss has like a self image, even though Foss has been formed to look like the other gems and tries to keep their arms that way, like the their body doesn't see it that way. Like it just shows that like Foss is just molding the shape of a human, but because that like is what happens later with the other things. Another thing that I forgot to add, maybe I did this before. Let's see, where is it? Okay, maybe I didn't. We'll get to it at some point. But let's see. I'm just checking. Like I wanted to point out the shoes thing. I'm not sure if I did before, but we see like that Foss has like goopy high heel shoes. Oh man, it's not on this cover. But like they extend their shoes to be more high heeled. And that's in of course into think about Antark, they changed their hairstyle to be more like Antark and all that. And I sort of think like because there is a point in the story where Foss forgets about their goal to bring Antark back and the reason why they want to do it. And I find it interesting that their physical appearance changes with that. So like in 12, this lovely panel, you see Foss is like you get a clear shot of Foss's like foot as they're like smashing the gems and all that. But like we can see that Foss's heel is gone. Like the high heels, like even when they went to the moon, they had the high heels in their it like I think this was 3 forms ago. They had high heels in the previous forms. Like see even here we have the goop again it's in the inside of the cover. But the goop is leaking out of Foss's foot because they want to keep the high heels to remember Antark. And so we see that like in Foss's transformation, like I don't think Foss remembers their desire to help Antark in this moment. What do you think? But like it just shows in their actual physical self, like how they think about that too. Because now the gold alloy isn't transferred back to their legs and out their heel. Now it's coming out of their head and the back of their neck. And so it's just interesting to see how their mental state reflects them physically and how it can even tell you what they remember. Because I believe because I think I'd have to really think about this more. But I think when Foss stops having the like the like more pointy heels because that was supposed to represent Antark, and their appearance started changing. I think that's when they forgot Antark, or when Antark was removed from their memories, basically, because stopped having they stopped physically looking like Antark, and even if they still remember Antark and all that, it shows that their desire to remember them and their appearance is gone. Like the connection is no longer there, or that it was severed. So it's just interesting to see how that's portrayed in how they look. Um, and here Red Barrel says like, oh, my the uniforms are based on how they look about you, and this tells us that that Red Barrel is still working on Foss's summer outfit, which Foss never gets to wear. But yeah. So, oh, Foss, like, this is everyone bugging Foss to try to get like information on them. Oh, and this also says like, do you still want to use Antark's sword? I think after this, Foss uses a different sword, but again, it shows that Foss is really connected to Antark in this moment. Like in the moment after like winter, Foss is completely really wants to remember them using their sword, everything like that. And as the story goes on, we see them that slowly fade away. They start to use a different sword. Like I would think when they start to pair up with Ghost, they start to use a different sword and not Antark's sword. And we just slowly see like how their appearance changes and how they slowly forget Antark and wanting to try to look like Antark. Um, oh, and it also shows that like they do put some care in their appearance too. Like the reason they still wear the winter uniform, probably the reason their hair is shorter, the reason that they like have made it so that they have like high heels. It shows that they have thought in their appearance. The fact that they powder their legs shows that they have thought in their appearance. But when they, but when Antark, but when they forget about Antark, when they think about that, in fact, when they go to the moon and allow them to change up their appearance, it shows that they don't care as much. Like they have no longer the will to keep a like strong code of their appearance. Like when they get to the moon and they give Foss new clothes, Foss is like, "Sure, I'll wear them." Like they don't care that much about it, you know. Um, yeah. So and actually, the lore book actually talks how Foss really isn't like. I don't think any of the gems were really consulted in their out. Actually, no, Beneteau was. Yeah. So the lore book talks about like I wish I had the lore book in my hands right now, but it's in the other room. But the lore book talks about how the designer of the moon outfits are was like going through the process of making all their clothes and thinking about it. With Foss, they described it as like, oh, I really like this one. I had to modify their design several times because they kept changing, and all that. And they talked about the reactions they got from giving the gems their clothing and stuff. Mainly Beneteau. I don't remember much about the other gems, but they mentioned like, oh, they had a reaction to it. But Foss's reaction was never mentioned, probably because Foss didn't have a big reaction or Foss didn't care. So it's really interesting, like just how that is. Um, so of course Rutile just wants to dissect Foss because it's interesting. And now this goopiness, like Foss being able to make like people out of their gold, is actually represented like throughout the story, and it like shows like Foss communicating with the Lunarians more. And each time Foss makes like sort of a humanoid out of gold, it gets better and better. Like just showing like in how much they've improved. Like this. But like Foss improves in that skill, so it kind of shows that like Foss is gradually improving with the what they have. So yeah, this is just funny. And then Foss is on the ceiling, and then the gold is just leaking out of their feet. And as I said before, like the gold later like leaks out of their head instead of their lower half of their body. Um, so it's interesting that change like throughout the story as well. And then there's Bort. Well, you're strong, happy now. There's nothing to be happy about. And again, like everyone is like, I ship Foss with happiness. Like we all just want Foss to be happy, and Foss is doing all this stuff to get happy. This is what they think will make them happy. They think getting stronger arms, they think getting faster legs, it will make them happy. It won't. And this shows us. They think being in the fighting position, having more competence will make them happy, but it won't. They'll never be satisfied, and that's just like seen in the story of like you're strong now. Well, you're strong now. That's what you wanted, right? Ford is saying like this is what you wanted. Are you happy now? Happy with yourself? You've accomplished your goal. Does this make you happy? And Foss says there's nothing to be happy about. And like this happens with every single goal that Foss has. Every single goal that Foss achieves all their goals, but they're never happy with the results. Just because they've forgotten their goals, something else happened, and they're never satisfied. And this is just shown in just these two panels of like you're happy, you're strong now, right? This is what you desired. You got what you desired. Whoops. You must be happy now. And Foss says no, not at all. Um, and that's just such a big theme throughout the story. Just in two panels, like it says that I thought not, and it shows that like I think that it's a little bit like that for all the other characters, but we see it exasperated in Foss. But we can see that like with Bort saying I thought not kind of indicates that like Bort always strives to get stronger and stuff, so it kind of like slightly indicates their mindset as well. And then of course Foss gets out, and so that alloy, and Foss is like starting to feel comfortable a little bit. Let me see what it feels like to slices. I love it, and then Foss is just there. Um, and then of course this is back when Dia and Bort are still, no fair. I get to be on the first. Hold your friend down for me. Okay, and you see how like Dia kind of follows what Bort says and stuff. And again, like these like fakes that Foss create are not that detailed. It's also because Foss is tired. That's what Foss said. But like it's interesting how they get more and more detailed the more that Foss does it, like throughout the story. And then Foss petitions for Congo's help. Foss, your arms are amazing. I love to calculate the extension for their malleability as far as they go. Foss, that new Lunarian type. I love Alex. Alex doesn't show up that much. I love all the gems. They're all so great. But like, Alex is also great. Like, it's just I feel like Alex shines whenever they're on screen, and that's kind of like the same with all the other gems. But it's so great, like the like minimal amount of screen time some of the characters get, and they're still just great, phenomenal characters. Love them. We have Jade in the corner just like being like, "Why is everyone so surrounded by Foss?" Your demonstrations gave me no details whatsoever, and I want to see what the others look like too. Do you have a new one? And I think like um Alex is curious, especially that Foss can like mold them to like see what Foss sees. You're very popular, like Congo saying. Oh, did I say it wrong? I want to make you stop them. But so like Congo's saying that like Foss is popular now, which is interesting because like that was not the way before. Like this is another thing that maybe Foss desired, like more attention from the gems, to be recognized as a hero, to be seen as cool. These are all things that Foss wanted, and now Foss is like, I don't want this. Again, Foss's expectations not living up to reality, which was I talked about previously with the fighting with the amethysts and stuff like that. And so it's interesting that Foss sees it that way. Uh, what else? And like again, Foss is not happy with these results. Foss isn't happy with being more popular or anything like that. And it also shows that like the gems only value their competency. Like I said this before already, but they're like, oh, Foss is more competent now because of their changes. They don't see the changes as a bad thing, and it's actually just encouraging Foss to change more or to have more modifications. Actually, the only one who doesn't do this is Rutile, because Rutile is like Foss is very complex. I'm not sure if they'll come back. That's only because Rutile really understands the gravity of like the situation. There you are. Enough. If you want to play with Foss, you have to take turns. Now line up. Just kidding. Foss like that. So this also talks about like Foss being loved more than Cinnabar, um, because it's talked about previously that Foss, like, what was I saying? Like Cinnabar tells Foss basically that like Foss will never understand because Foss has never experienced loneliness, or Foss is like already loved by the gems. Because from Cinnabar's perspective, Foss is with the gems all the day. Foss gets to be inside the hook, so Foss has a better life uh, than Cinnabar. Cinnabar thinks from their point of view, and we see here that like even though Foss doesn't have any deep relationships, Foss still has a community here. Foss still gets to be with the gems, where Cinnabar doesn't. And Foss takes this for granted later. Like, they don't realize that like what they have until it's gone. Like it's just that. Just kidding, Foss is gone. I was joking, so yeah, Foss is gone. Well, but yeah, you can see how Congo helped. Power always comes with a measure of loneliness. So this is interesting that it comes from Congo, because of course Congo is like the most powerful towards the gems. And Cinnabar, so Congo, Cinnabar, and Foss are kind of like all like that in the way. And the reason why Cinnabar doesn't leave with Foss to the moon is because Cinnabar is concerned about Congo being lonely, and that's exactly what Foss wants. And we can see like just in the power struggle between like Foss and Congo with like their nations. Although Congo doesn't really suffer. Like Congo doesn't suffer that much in the sense of he doesn't really like fight back against it. Struggle, I guess that's what I mean. Struggle, but like Foss, um, as Foss gets more powerful, they get more lonely. Of course, we see that like just with 12. Like as they get more powerful, they become like a god. They're still in the same place. They're still lonely, and I think that having power just exasperates that loneliness too, because they're like, I'm so capable, I can do all these things, yet I still do not have any deep relationships, Then do you ever feel lonely, Sensei? I'm not telling. And so, because Sensei is a robot or like a machine, like I was talking about this with some other people, but like it's hard for him to be personal. It's hard for him to give that support that he needs. He does care about the gems greatly, but kind of like how he wasn't able to support Cinnabar with like getting a job or anything like that. And the fact that doesn't he's not like one of the gems. He's unable to give them the needed like care and attention that they need, sort of thing. And especially when they're different from how he expects, or when they don't fit into the society well, like Cinnabar. Um, and so that's probably the loneliness part of him, is that even though he's surrounded by like these creatures that he loves, he's unable to give them the attention that they need. He's unable to provide them with a safe environment. He's unable to connect them into a society, and so that's probably the loneliness he feels. Um, and meanwhile, Foss is able to do that, but Foss isn't able to do that for themselves, which is really sad. Why am I so tired? And again, Foss is like the only gem. Like, there's a couple other times, like I think Rutile also like faints one time, but like they're rarely the other characters I've seen as tired. But the reason why Foss is probably so tired is probably because of like the changes in their body, but also because they have such a mental exhaustion. Like this is the exact same thing that happened with their legs when they were with the amethyst. Is all these changes are not what they expected. All these changes they realize are not good. They don't like them. And of course, that's why they're so tired, is because they're so mentally exhausted adapting to these changes. And of course, this is only done when they're brought in with people after their change, because they were fine when it was just them in winter. But now that they're seeing like how others react to them and how this will be a permanent thing, that's when it gets scary. And of course, when they see that, then Cinnabar comes, the person who they obviously care about the most. But that's gonna be next chapter. Yeah. Um, so yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below. That was a lot of information, but I hope that this was relevant to you. And let me know if I missed anything or anything like that. What do you think about Foss's depression? Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. All right, thank you. Bye, y'all.